Javier Ferreira, co-CEO of Scopely. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mishka. Great to be here. It's been an amazing journey. We started this off in 2017, and I think we started with 7 to 10 people in Barcelona back in the days, and I think we are over 800 people now and growing. So it's been an amazing journey. And
growth. That's the story of this podcast, is growth. Because when I was kind of looking at the numbers in Sensor Tower, so I looked from the point when you joined Scopely and to last full year, so 2023.
Yeah.
So just looking at the net in-app purchases and downloads. So Sensor Tower numbers, when you joined, the company was making about 110 million a year in in-app purchases. In 2023, the number was 2.8 billion. Now we're in halfway of 2024, and you've already crossed, according to Sensor Tower, that 2.8 billion. So
Yeah.
that's some hefty growth. And from download side, 10x growth as well, from 44 million back in 2014 to 460 million in 2024.
Yeah.
I think the main question to ask here is like, what makes such a good co-CEO?
Well, first of all, I mean, I joined Scopely in 2014. I think the company had done about $12 million of revenue that year in 2013. So that's kind of when I started. And in 2024 now, we are on track to, to do well over kind of, $3 billion of revenue. So it's been a lot of growth. Obviously, a lot of that success is not down to me, and it's been the amazing work of a lot of kind of team members and people that have brought in. It's a lot of passion and dedication. I think Scopely has been a very passion kind of driven kind of enterprise for a lot of people. As in my role and in my contribution, what I've tried to do is drive the energy and the mood of the company. I think that's kind of really important. How do people feel when they come to Scopely, and how is the company impacting them, right? Energetically. So I've tried to kind of make sure that I contributed to that. I've tried to stay, very ambitious in terms of what we're trying to do. I think the limit is always defined by your thoughts, right? So I've always tried to make sure that we had, really, really ambitious thinking. But at the same time, have always tried to couple that with an awareness that nearly always, if not always, I'm wrong. And so are you, and so are you, and so are you, right? And that we're here together, not to, we're here to work together, not to kind of trade opinions, but to kind of find better hypotheses to grow together. So I've tried to kind of instill that kind of culture and that mindset. I think strategy has been, an important kind of component. I think I see across the industry sometimes great teams and great people, but without the right strategy, that's always going to be a rocky kind of probably unsuccessful ride. So I've always tried to become very aware of what's happening in the industry, trends, what other companies are doing, and always try to make sure that we had a strategy that was differentiated and that allowed us to out execute the market. And I think finally, I've always been very focused on building a great team. I think talent and talent density has been a great focus for us as a company and for me personally since kind of day one. I've seen how one individual can impact a company, and I've also seen how one team can impact a company. And so I've always tried to kind of make sure that we were building great teams and continuously supporting them and continuously improving them. I think the collection of those things really had allowed me to kind of make a positive contribution on what we've done. Yeah.
A story came to my mind about Scopely.
Yeah.
So this is, we have fans of the show, so they tell us all kind of thing. You were having a leadership meeting back in the days. I don't know when, I would say 9 or 10 years ago. And
Yeah.
you were debating about whether you should have the offsite in Cabo or something else, somewhere in Mexico. That was almost like a tradition back then. And the company wasn't doing as well as it's doing now.
Yeah.
So the finances are a little bit tougher. And I don't remember, was it you or Walter, but some of you said like, no, we are doing this because people need to spend time together. And even though we're taking a financial risk by arranging a company offsite, you still want to do this thing. So just kind of go into that energy and mood. I don't know if that's a true story, but
I think that's a true story. I think that that's probably Walter that is being referenced there, and I think Walter has also had that very much kind of top of mind. That he wanted to build a club, right? He wanted to always build an experience. We call ourselves an experience company, and for me, the most important experience is the experience that we are all having, and so not just about kind of winning, but doing something that is meaningful and having fun. So it's been part of our tenets. We call it kind of play to win. Yeah, we want to win, but we want to win by playing.
Those are the type of things that you easily forget when you grow and you kind of see people less and you see more numbers and there's more stakeholders and you want to focus on the business, but it seems like you're still focusing very much on spending time together. You were talking about the offside that you had in North Spain and so forth.
I mean, I think numbers are just outcomes.
Yeah.
I think if you lose track of that and you start kind of making numbers your goal, probably going to work out kind of short term, but it's going to work against you in the medium and long term. And so we're always focused on the things that we believe, lead to outcomes. And by the way, outcomes sometimes don't show up. Sometimes they show up later than you expected, sometimes smaller, sometimes bigger. What I think you can control is the inputs, and building a great culture, building a great team, having a great strategy. If those things are in place, generally you're going to find success.
I want to talk about how you make gains, but before that, you mentioned strategy a couple of times. And so I'm going to reference to something that you said in our last time we spoke on a podcast. That was like 2019 maybe or something. So I'm going to quote you. Quote, "The vision for the company has been and continues to be to build the definitive free-to-play games company in the West." And you underline, like, that's a vision, but you underline the strategy quite detailedly. So you said there's 3 pillars of the strategy. Number 1 was studio ecosystem, where the studios can build genre-leading products. And number 2 was building and having a tech platform for best possible personalization and monetization.
Yeah.
And the third element is kind of what you were talking about, is that company operating system, what you called it. So iterate on processes, talent, culture, and internal experience to operate studios and platform at scale. How, like, clearly this strategy has been executed very well. How is this strategy and vision evolving now, as you are definitely a definitive free-to-play company in the West, but arguably globally?
Yeah, I mean, I think it continues to evolve, and it continues to evolve driven by, I think, 2 fundamental things. One is the success of the company. And so, when you are making $100 million a year in revenue, the kind of products that you need to build to double your revenues, well, that's a $100 million a year product, right? When you're making multi-billion dollars a year, the kind of products that you're gonna have to build to kind of drive growth are kind of different. And of course, the stakes also around your kind of live portfolio are very different. So that's kind of one thing, and the second one is also through the kind of ambition of the team. I think in this kind of learning machine terminology that we use, it is really a kind of cultural tenet, and sometimes the cultural tenet can be anti-strategic, or can appear to be anti-strategic, right? Because sometimes, throughout all of this journey, sometimes people have said to us, well, why don't you just focus on what you know how to do, right? And that makes a lot of strategic sense. I get the strategic sense of doing that, but we've always been much more interested in learning and always operating in the right, what I call kind of the sphere of incompetence, in the right level of a sphere of incompetence. You got to know how to do a bunch of things, but you also got to be operating in areas where you just don't know. and you have to learn and you have to grow into that. So I think right now we are, we have, built, one to point, I think one of the most important kind of companies in the mobile free-to-play game space. But there are, parts of the industry that we still want to kind of, make more inroads in. I think games as a service and free-to-play is a beautiful and highly sophisticated and complex merge of kind of art and science, and we're still learning on both the science and on the art side of things. We want to make games that reach more players. We want to grow our revenues. So I think there's no kind of an inflection point in our journey, but certainly we continue to be on that journey, and the team is motivated to kind of continue to climb higher and do better.
Is the vision, well, the vision is probably different now. Like, you're not only trying to be in the West, right? And because you're cross-platform already, Stumble Guys is on all the consoles.
Yeah. So, we have, again, we see this as a kind of, as a journey of growth and learning, and so we've taken now Stumble Guys to consoles. We are on 2 out of the 3 consoles, and hopefully soon we're going to be across all consoles. We've learned a lot. We found a lot of success on those platforms so far. But I don't think you can say that Scopely is a dominant kind of AAA big screen free-to-play games publisher. And we are motivated to kind of grow in that direction. By the way, not because the screen is bigger, but because there are millions of players, that you can reach. And also there are really cool and interesting games that you can build, for those audiences. And we have a lot of people at the company that are excited to do that. And so we are building a lot of infrastructure, a lot of capabilities, a lot of know-how. We are learning by success, by failing. But certainly we are going that direction. I think over the next kind of few years, you're going to see us being much more active on that space. And so when I think about the company, the business that I think we're in is games as a service, free play. Those are the kind of 2 things that we believe in. We think free play is an amazing discovery kind of tool. It allows players to find the game that is kind of perfect for them. And it allows us to build a business that is driven by engagement, by making the game better every day, and being on that kind of flywheel that is creatively exciting and a great business as well.
So as a lot of traditional AAA developers are kind of backtracking their games as a service strategies, you're more bullish on it and entering.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's I don't want to say it's the future of kind of entertainment, because that sounds a little bit too visionary, but I think it allows you to, the way that I think games as a service is, the business is built on listening to your players. So you put the game in the hands of players, and players are speaking to you. They're speaking to you through how they interact with the game, what they like, what they engage with, the updates that they love, the updates that they don't love, what content they're willing to pay for, what content they don't really like. And if you are a smart kind of game developer, you're listening to your players, turning those kind of, and turning that into insights, from insights into product experiences, and from product experiences back to the player. And if you're able to do that, then what happens? The game gets better, players love it more, and you keep going. So I think it's just such a kind of perfect model of engagement between the game developer and the player that I think if well kind of utilized, it gives you a huge competitive advantage over anything that is not that.
Especially if you have great studios, the tech platform that allows to get all that information.
Correct.
And you iterate on your processes, the talent, the culture, the internal experience.
Exactly.
So that's what really company is.
Yeah, it all kind of comes together, right? I mean, I think, and we've talked about this internally a lot, right? When you think about the success that we've had with Monopoly Go, it's all of those things coming together, right? It's all of those things kind of coming together, and it's what we learned when we did Star Trek, and what we also kind of built through WWE, Wheel of Fortune, Walking Dead, around kind of Playgami and all that kind of tech platform, how we iterated on green light processes and how we were able to kind of augment the studio ecosystem of Monopoly Go through all the BD kind of practices that we had kind of built over the years. So it's not an accident, right? It's the collection of capabilities deployed against the market, hopefully in ways that are better than when we spoke in 2019, and I think they are, as you can see by the outcome. Yeah.
So one of the things, last reference to the previous podcast is you talked about Scopely being a learning machine. You kind of referred to that multiple times. What goes into that, and how do you really implement that type of a culture where you create a learning machine? Because to learn means you have to accept failure.
Yeah.
And you have to be patient.
Yeah.
Like, how do you build that type of a culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's this people love their opinions. Yeah. And then we all like to kind of agree with ourselves, and so if you want to kind of drive a kind of culture of learning, you are fighting gravity. Like, you're fighting the kind of natural tendencies that we all have. No, we try to have an attitude of kind of truth seeking, where it doesn't really matter hierarchy. It doesn't kind of the goal here is not for you to tell me, hey, I got this, I know exactly what the answer is, trust me, but it's much more about what, I have doubts, and I don't know exactly how we get from A to B. How do we do that? And with that kind of inquisitive kind of mindset and that openness to, I don't know, I think that's kind of where the real kind of interesting kind of conversations start. And so we try to model that as leaders within the company. We didn't know how to build this company.
Yeah.
We didn't have a kind of blueprint. And I don't think we ever going to represent it to our teams that we knew. What we represented to our teams is that we had the desire, the conviction, the passion, the resilience, the drive, the commitment. And, together we've been on this journey where we start with, we don't know. And generally when somebody starts at Scopely with, I know, that certainly raises, it certainly raises my antennas, and it's a red flag for me, because certainty is dangerous. And as I said before, everything that we've ever believed at Scopely has proven to be either false or imperfect. And so let's start with that kind of internalization, and then we can kind of grow from there.
Web stores. You've seen what good looks like, but have you seen great? AppCharge is the direct-to-consumer platform backed by the likes of Supercell and built by monetization pros from Moon Active, Playtika, Huge Games, and others. People who know the difference. AppCharge powers over $500 million in transaction a year for top studios, optimizing every detail. Deeply personalized web store offers custom-made design, industry-leading monetization features, in-game payments, SDK, and more. 70% of top grossing games already have a web store, but the ones scaling fastest, they're doing it with AppCharge. Learn more at appcharge.com.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, hindsight, maybe the shareholders would have liked to launch this game globally before the acquisition, because with these type of acquisitions, as we very well are aware, there's many acquirers at the same time.
Yeah,
I doubt that Savvy was the only one knocking on the door.
Yeah, no, there were multiple, but I think, of course, first of all, hindsight, who knows?
It's great, nevertheless.
Yeah. But I think everybody felt that the outcome was a great one for everybody, and I think when people feel great about the outcome, the outcome could have been better? Who knows? Maybe. But I think everybody has felt really great about the journey that's been on at the company. Particularly our investors, I think, have all done very well.
Especially because had somebody acquired a company that has a booming product, then they expect that product to grow. Now they acquired before the biggest product launched. Yeah. So now it's kind of all on the bonus. And you don't have the same type of pressure. Yeah. There is pressure, but you're already out deliver.
The pressure we put the pressure on ourselves always. But yeah, I think, as I said, the best type of acquisition is one where all the stakeholders are happy, and I think that's exactly what we achieve.
I have a couple of questions, but not. Let's talk about the games a little bit more before the acquisition part, because Scopely has acquired a ton of studios as well, so that's an interesting to hear. But I wanted to ask about, like, Monopoly Go has an IP. Then we talked about Star Trek. There's Yahtzee, Scrabble, Walking Dead, Damage. Yeah, multiple different games.
Yeah.
They all have great IPs.
Yeah.
Now I'm just thinking about all the IPs behind, but like, what makes Scopely so good at working with IP? Because clearly this is the pillar of your strategy, is to work with big IPs.
Today's podcast is brought to you by AppsFlyer, inviting you to dive into their new first of its kind report, The State of Creative Optimization 2025 edition. It's not about how to make creatives. It's about understanding what makes users actually stop scrolling and what emotional and psychological triggers drive performance. Based on over 1 million creative variations and nearly $2.5 billion in ad spend, the insights in the report will help you develop a winning creative strategy. Check out the link in the podcast description below, or go to appsflyer.com and search The State of Creative Optimization. That's appsflyer.com.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, it's not the IP, right, that does the work. As an example, there was a Yahtzee game before we launched Yahtzee. I think the game was doing $100,000 a year, and obviously against that's multiples of that a day, right? And you could say the same with kind of Star Trek, Walking Dead, and others, right? But I think it all kind of starts first with, of course, choosing the right IP. Mm-hmm. And with IP, what we've always focused on is the audience kind of component. And when I say an audience, I would even kind of take it further, and I would say a fandom component. Because there are, for example, IPs that might be very well known, that there's no real fandom. And when I say fandom, I'm talking about the desire to exist in that universe, for long periods of time, hopefully with your friends and family, right? For example, a lot of movies can be huge, right? And they can be huge IPs, but people don't really want to spend time in those universes.
Like Hunger Games.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So we've always tried to kind of look for IPs that have this kind of fandom appeal. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, are you building the right game, for that IP? So, for example, you can get Star Trek, but if you make a Star Trek Match 3 game, I struggle to think that you're going to be successful. And so you go to kind of couple that with the right kind of product strategy. And I think we've always been very deliberate, not in just, okay, we're looking for fandom, but also we are going to service the fandom, right? We're not just we're not going to write the IP. We're going to make the game that we think the fandom wants the most. So for example, in the case of Star Trek, we thought that the fantasy of Star Trek was to be able to live in that galaxy and to kind of conquer the galaxy and to kind of enter into alliances and kind of fight other alliances, because we thought that was kind of the core fantasy of the IP. So I think that's the second thing that you got to nail, and I think we've done well. And the third one is, even if you get both of those things right, you still have a zero. You're still at the beginning, and you got to make a great game. You got to make a great game. Having an IP and the right kind of product strategy supports a great outcome. That's not necessary. It's not sufficient to deliver a great outcome. I think historically, sometimes I think studios and the game industry sometimes have seen IP as a shortcut. And I think generally our experience has been that to get it right, it's more like a long cut, and that you need to get a lot of things right. For example, in the case of Monopoly, what is that as a free-to-play game? It's like we needed to kind of invent that. We couldn't just kind of say, we didn't just want to put a Monopoly board game on a phone. We wanted to put the fantasy of Monopoly on a free-to-play game. So we've always been very patient and very deliberate in making sure that we got the right kind of fandom, that we had a great product strategy, but that we were also kind of building, a great game. And I think when we've been successful across those three pillars, we've always found a lot of success. Yeah.
And since you're delivered consecutively for these top IPs, it's probably easier for you to sign almost any IP now because you are, looking at Hasbro numbers, a great partner for any IP licensor.
Yeah. Obviously, for example, in the case of Hasbro, Monopoly's the crown, the jewel in the crown. Right? It's their one of the most important IPs, certainly within the Hasbro kind of board game family, right? And so we didn't start with Monopoly. Yeah. We started with Yahtzee, and with Yahtzee we built a digital games business that was way, way bigger than the actual Yahtzee business that they had, right? And so we built that relationship. And then we went and we did Scrabble, and then we did Monopoly. So it's about kind of building those relationships, but it's really about building the trust, with the partners. And as you build trust, they allow you to service those three pillars that we mentioned kind of better, because sometimes they also have their own kind of perspectives and ideas. And I think the other thing that we've managed to do, I think very effectively, and I think this is credit to our kind of BD and kind of corp dev organization. We've been able to structure the deals in ways that are supportive of the outcome. Because sometimes also with IP deals, one of the dangers that you have is that the deal structure can be negative to the outcome of both parties, by the way, right? And this is counterintuitive, and I'm not going to get into the kind of ins and out of exactly how we structure the deals, but I can tell you that the deals that we do today are very, very different than the deals that we're doing in 2014. And that's just because as we had built these games, and then as we have launched them, and as we have seen what was happening and what the game needed and what the P&L needed, we've been able to work with our partners to make sure that the deal structure supports the outcome, or supports maximizing the outcome. And when you maximize the outcome, then everybody's always, very happy. And as we have seen, Yahtzee, we launched Yahtzee in 2014, and 10 years later, still a huge franchise and generating great royalties for kind of for Hasbro. Why? Well, because obviously I think that there's been a lot of great work happening on the Scopely side, but also, Hasbro has been kind of partnering with us to make sure that the partnership allowed for that level of investment and for that type of long-term thinking.
Yeah. The IP, the deal making is a tough part. Like even going back to your Walking Dead game, I think you made a game as an example of how tumultuous this can be. You made a deal with the I think with a comic book.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, AMC made a deal with another studio that was based on the TV show, and both of the games come at the same time. Yeah. Both are RPG games. Didn't know that they were being developed at the same time. So kind of all kinds of the challenges that could be.
Yeah, we knew that it would be that the game was kind of being developed, and then again, as I said, it comes down to that's just the IP is just kind of one component, but then ultimately it's how good is the game, and then how much are you investing in making it better, and when you kind of investing in marketing, are you thinking about a 6-month horizon, or are you thinking about we're building a business for the next 10 years? So all of those things kind of matter. And I think we've brought, a sophisticated lens to a lot of those kind of conversations or horizons. And that has allowed us to kind of find a lot of repeatable success.
And that gradual approach, as you said, long-term partnersps with holders where they have trust towards what you're doing.
Yeah. And also, as I said, as we said before, the learning, Walking Dead was, Scopely had never done a mid-core game. Yeah. Never. And when we were developing that game, a lot of people were telling us that it was not going to be possible for us to kind of make a mid-core game. But we learned and we figured out, and then that was a great success. But then we took that and then we made Star Trek, and that was a much bigger success. And then we took everything that we learned on Star Trek and we took it to Monopoly, and that's been a much bigger success. So it's also, all of these things compound over time,
Do you see your Scopely making a game with its own IP?
Yeah, we are kind of we are making right now a number of games with our own IP, and as well as we have a number of games in development with strong kind of partners. For me, we never really thought about the business in that way, and I know it sounds maybe kind of counterintuitive looking from the outside. For me, it's always about we got to build something that is really going to resonate in deep ways with the audience, and the audience needs to have a magnetism towards discovery of the experience. Of course, the IP helps you with that, right? But the problem that we're trying to solve is that, and so we have a couple of kind of great teams within the company that are going after answering that kind of question through original IP for sure.
One thing that when I'm thinking about, like, if there's one adjective to use with Scopely, to me, it's, I would say tenacious. And it's because of the way you've launched your games and developed them. So like using, let's say, Monopoly Go as an example. To my understanding, that game had quite of a big of a pivots from like what the original concept was when you really worked on it. It wasn't quite there. Then you tried something new. I think that was Massimo's interview. And that has seemed to happen with a lot of your different games where the soft launch period is really, really long, where you're just trying to figure out like how to make it, how to launch this. That's not typical. A lot of companies, let's say the opposite as an example with Supercell kind of celebrating the moment they kill a game.
Yeah.
Where you're like tenaciously like turning all the rocks, changing teams, changing everything just to try to launch that game. And if after all of that it doesn't launch, then fine, then you're killing it.
Yeah.
So can you kind of walk me through from your perspective? Because especially working with an IP, there's minimum guarantees, there's the IP holders, there's all that stress coming from the outside. There's the stuff internally where you see that the game is not going anywhere or it's not delivering what it should be. There's years in development. Like, how do you have those difficult conversations? How you justify investing more where you kind of don't see the results from it and you have that pressure?
Yeah. Look, I think we're never surprised by failure. We expect it, right? I think this is important. This is an kind of important concept. If you think that you're going to make a game and that is going to be a journey of success, then do not abandon that journey, because you're going to be disappointed. Game making is a kind of process of discovery, of dead ends, of failure and iteration. And so I think this is important, right? Because it creates a framework. That is, we do not measure the potential of a game based on where it's at any one particular moment. That is, it's succeeding. Well, we know it might be succeeding right now in the development cycle, but 6 months from now, every single game that we have kind of made has gone through, every successful game that we have made has gone through a kind of, so what we call the kind of dark tunnel kind of a period where it feels that there's no, light at the end of the tunnel. So making sure that that's the expectation that we all have. That is, the game team needs to have that expectation, but also the rest of the company, because, within a company like ours, people have an opinion. Well, we should kill this game. We should invest more in this game. This game has massive potential. This game is gonna kind of win. This one is gonna fail. And I can tell you that in Monopoly Go, that debate was always alive, and that did 100% of the company believe that game was going to be successful? Absolutely not, right? So making sure that we all understand that this is not so much, I think for me, game making is a process of conviction. It's about building conviction and having the resilience to kind of follow your conviction. And so how do we kind of build that conviction? First, do we believe in the product strategy? Like, do we think we have the right kind of product strategy? And in the case of Monopoly, we always thought that we did. For some of the kind of reasons that we have discussed before around the kind of power of the IP, the desire to see that game as a kind of live service in mobile, which had never been done, right? So that's the first thing that I focus on and that we focus on. The second thing is the team. Do we believe in the team? I think this is kind of really important because great teams do some great things, and they also do some stupid things, and it happens to all of us. And of course, I include myself in the doing stupid things part of things for sure. But if you believe in the team, then that builds a lot of kind of conviction. I think the third one, and this might be the most important, that's the game team believe in the game. Mm-hmm. Now, this is very difficult one to kind of ascertain, because the team has always a bias to tell you that they believe in the game. They have a bias, right? They
Jobs.
Yeah, they jobs, dynamics, reputation, all kinds of things. So it's something that you have to investigate and research. And it's not easy to surface. But when you find that the team is great, and that great team of truly exceptional people still believe on what they're trying to do, that to me kind of builds a lot of conviction. And by the way, when you don't have that conviction, when the team doesn't have that conviction, that's when for us it's been the biggest trigger to kind of abandon a project. Now, if those three things are in place, what you just need is time. You just need time. And now time is expensive, and sometimes can be painful as well, right? Because investors, the market, IP holders, nobody wants later. Everybody wants now or yesterday, right? And so again, going back to the kind of what is the responsibility of the leadership team and of the CEOs, you got to protect the organization from pain. And sometimes that's not the most fun thing to do, but that's what we try to do. And so we try to make sure that we give our teams the time and the space to continue on the journey. And if we believe in the product, we believe in the team, and the team believes in the product. Every single time that we have done that, time has been a friend. And the problem is that when you're on the journey, time feels like your enemy. But ultimately, time turns out to be your friend.
Hey, are you building a game, launching an app, or considering an acquisition? Well, in that case, Deconstructor of Fun Consulting is here to help you out. We do everything from market research to go-to-market strategies to live ops optimization and due diligence. We're trusted by some of the most beloved game development companies, makers of tools and tech, as well as some of the most renowned investors. Now, if you are building, launching, or buying, don't do it alone. Do it with us. Connect by emailing to consulting@deconstructoroffun.com.
I'm asking this question because a lot of time people don't understand the role of an executive in these situations, because if you don't do anything and this game ends up burning, in development, a ton of money, the IP holder is not happy, nobody's happy, the team is not happy, team leaves and so forth, it becomes a disaster, like in all possible way. If you haven't done anything, that's your fault. And that's why the question is about like, when do you intervene and how do you intervene is a very interesting one, because if you intervene too early, you might be the fault of why it failed. If you intervene too late, again, it's your fault. So it's like, the question is more is like, what is the right time and the right way to intervene?
I intervene all the time. And I think, but I don't intervene. And I think we try to kind of create a process and forums where not just myself, but other people intervene all the time. But the intervention is not top down. The intervention is not, I know. But the intervention is more, hey team, do you have the right product strategy? Next Monday, is the product strategy really good? Then next Tuesday, what about your team? Is it really good? I'm not sure that this person, or what about we still have a gap here? And then on Wednesday, it's about, tell me how you feel about the game. What are your concerns? What are your fears? And so it's not like, oh, we're going to a green light meeting and here comes a couple of kind of executives saying, oh, we like the game, or we don't like the game. It's kind of ongoing intervention, but the intervention is not in the service of our opinions, but in the service of some core beliefs that we collectively hold, right? And it's about kind of questioning all of us, questioning ourselves all the time. Do we have the right answers for those three things? And if we do, and we never do, right, the answer is always getting a little bit better, getting a little bit better. That's for what for us kind of intervention is. Because generally when I think maybe I would add the fourth one, which is, as I said, that protection for the team. Because people who are not close to the team have their own opinions, right? And as I said before, 50% of Scopely at some point would have maybe said, what are we doing with this monopoly thing? And the other 50% would have said, this is the best thing that's ever happened to us. But then you have the IP holder, you have, other stakeholders. And so making sure that intervention is also mostly about protection. But to me, it's not about touch points. It's about an iterative process of us working together. And as the CEO or as the co-CEO, I don't bring truth, but I bring a different perspective. And what we always demand from our teams is that they need to be open to those kind of different perspectives, right? I sit at a different perspective that allows me, from the perspective from where I'm kind of looking at things, there's some things that I don't see. And I'm now well equipped to have an opinion about those things. But there's other things that I see better than anybody else. And so they also need to be open to that kind of perspective.
And I think that's a really important point, because you're talking about your relationship with the GM in this case. And there's like what sometimes developers don't understand is the role of responsibility. So you are responsible of the commercial success of the game just as much as they are.
100%.
And the role of a GM is not only to lead the team, not only to have the right product strategy, the right team, and create the belief inside of the team, but the role of the GM is also to make sure that you share the same belief in what's happening, because you are responsible. It's not like we're going to go into this room, don't talk to us for the next, until the next green light. It's like everybody is on edge, because this is everybody's responsibility, because when this game succeeds, everybody succeeds.
Yeah.
But when it fails, everybody fails. Not just the game team, but everybody. You're kind of like instilling.
Yeah. And I think you were kind of maybe alluding to it before when you were talking about kind of corporations, right?
Yeah.
We want people to have a lot of ownership and autonomy, but only through the lens of we are in this together.
Yes.
Okay, we're in this together. We've never kind of allowed GMs or game teams that are saying, we're doing our own thing, leave us alone, we have no interest, whatever. We think that's kind of really toxic and not conducive to kind of long-term success. So yes, one of the kind of fundamental jobs of the GM is it's a tough job, the GM is the job that everybody wants, but it's the one that then when they have it, it's a very difficult job, because one of the fundamental things that they need to do is receive kind of a lot of kind of input, be open to criticism, seek out kind of problems, seek out criticisms, and then iterate on that information. And put plans in place and take the actions that are needed, so that the team, which is not just the game team, it's all of us at Scopely, can collectively say, yeah, we want to keep going. We have conviction on this. And so that's an important part of a GM's kind of responsibility. And whenever I sense a gap, whenever I sense a deficit in that conviction across the organization, that's the first thing that I do. I go to the GM and say, hey, there is a gap in the kind of conviction around the company between what you're doing and what people feel. And that's a great opportunity, because it's telling us something. There's information there. Whenever there's a gap between the team, the game team, and the rest of the organization, there's interesting information for us to talk about. And so that's a conversation we're having all the time.
So the type of GMs that you're looking for your companies are almost like startup CEOs.
100%, yeah.
Because they have their team, but they also have their investors.
100%, yeah.
That they have to be constantly discussing what's the best way.
Yeah.
And if they keep them aside, then the next round is going to be pretty tough if they come in with a surprise.
Exactly. And look, I think as good investors, we're never telling a team what to do.
Yeah.
We're never telling, because by the way, if you want to tell the team what to do, go and work for the team. Sorry, go and work for the team immediately. If you know better, go and work for the team. But what we want is for the team to always be very open to that kind of point of view and to that kind of feedback, and then for the GM to take that and look, with feedback, what you need to be is open, and then you can absolutely and should reject a lot of the feedback that you're going to get. Say, thank you for this feedback. I thought about it, I digested it. I'm not interested in it. That's not helpful for me. I'm going to move on, right? But you got to be open, and of course, in some cases, take kind of valuable feedback and inject it into how you running that organization.
Game devs. Here at Heroic Labs, we know that great gameplay is what players love, but integrating metagame features like challenges, progression, and rewards is crucial for retention and monetization. But coding them is a tedious and time-consuming process. That's why top studios have turned to Hero from Heroic Labs. Hero provides a complete suite of battle-tested metagame features that are quick to implement, letting you spend more time on the core gameplay experience. Ready to ship fully featured, engaging games? Check out Hero today at heroiclabs.com.
I think that's really valuable information how you run your GM organization, because I know that there is sense that people sometimes think that it's best when the studios are left alone.
No.
And to me, it's like when studios left alone, that studio is about to be shut.
I think we are all worst when we're left alone.
Yeah.
Humans are much more kind of animals when we are together.
Yeah.
And so togetherness for us is an important kind of concept. And we always try to make sure that we're going after problems, with a collective kind of mindset. That doesn't mean that you don't have ownership. You have ownership. Ultimately, you're going to have to make the decision. But anybody that's left alone is gonna, in my opinion, always under-deliver versus the potential that they have if they are surrounded by great people. We saw it with the Monopoly team.
Yeah.
It was the Monopoly team that put the first iteration of that game into soft launch.
Yeah.
And we saw the KPIs, and we thought we probably had $100 million a year business, which is,
Good.
It's a good
Additive.
outcome. It's a good outcome. It's a good outcome. And it was the team that said, we don't think we delivered on that kind of promise. We don't think we made the right game for the audience. And there's a much better kind of experience and a much better game that we can build. And it was them that said, we don't want to launch it.
Yeah. Well, so I was kind of going back to these three pillars that you mentioned around what builds conviction and resilience: product strategy, team composition, let's put it this way, or talent.
Talent density,
Yeah, talent density, exactly. And the game team's belief in the game itself. I think these are really good because by them, I've seen these used by them own, by just them in many companies. Like, if you believe in what you're doing, then you can continue to do it. And that can often lead to delusion and those products that have no audience. Then have a great team and you will win. Kind of like the sort of a Real Madrid type of approach. It's like, no, Real Madrid has a coach. Strategy. It's not just put great people together and they deliver magic.
I mean, the Galacticos did nothing. I mean, Barcelona, we destroyed them, So, of course, you need much more than just a great team.
Yeah, but there's this sort of approach where you would say, they just have the best players and that's why they always win. And then the product strategy is that is, for somewhat reason, what I often feel with a lot of mobile gaming companies especially, they don't want to even talk about strategy. And they start off with that sort of a 2010, 2012 type of approach. Let's just prototype some fun stuff. Let's find what works, and then let's build on top of that. And there's many success cases. I mean, the whole Supercell portfolio is basically built by that. And that's almost seen as the one right way. But you have this approach of no, we have a strategy. We know what we're building, who we're building for, what is the competition. We know everything around us, and we constantly look at it. Has this changed? If it has changed, is the strategy still viable? If the strategy is not viable, it doesn't matter if you have a great team and you have a team that believes in what they're doing. We have to change the strategy to be able to execute on what we're doing.
Correct. Yeah. To your point, I think it's when one of those three components is missing, I think it's going to be very difficult for you to kind of find the right outcome.
Yeah. As I mentioned in the break, I think when I previously thought you as a tenacious company, I would say in my opinion, it's very deliberate. Everything is, it's thought out, and then you said resilient, and all those things come to mind. But it's it feels very deliberate, very strategic, but nevertheless constantly learning, constantly adjusting.
I think that's a kind of for a description. With I think couple, as I said at the beginning, with this awareness that even if you have all of those things in place, Yeah, it's gonna be a tough kind of road, and you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail on that road, and I think also when you encounter that failure, I think that's when a lot of teams and companies kind of fall apart, and you need to kind of make sure that when you encounter that failure, you use that as a great opportunity to come out of it strong.
So kind of switching topics and talking about the acquisition of Scopely by Savvy. So 4.9 billion in 2023.
Great, correct.
Yes. What has this type of acquisition enabled? Like, what has changed with Scopely? How you operate? Like, I don't think internally, but probably externally. Like, what has really changed?
Yeah, I think to your point before, there were a number of kind of parties interested in kind of in acquiring kind of Scopely at that time, and for us, we chose Savvy, right? And we chose it because first we believe that the type of mission that we were on and the type of experience that we want to have was best served by staying as a private company, and so. What the Savvy acquisition has allowed us to do is to stay private without, by the way, the kind of pressure of valuations, maybe raising more money. And also, this is really important for a startup, and it's okay to talk about it, and also allowed people to remove the downside of a startup, right? Scopely started being worth nothing, and then it ended up being $4.9 billion. Well, there's a lot of people that accumulate a lot of wealth through that journey, and we're here for 5, 8, 10 years, right? And so there was when you kind of have an exit like this, it just removes a lot of the fear, and fear is never good at a company or at a team, and so. What it's allowed us to have is, to stay private in a really kind of solid, really solid platform where we are thinking about the upside. What can we do kind of from here? We have an investor who is very long-term oriented, who has been, incredibly respectful of our strategic and operational kind of autonomy, and who is kind of focused on how they can help us rather than how they can change us, right? And I think that's rare for an acquisition, and that has changed how we think about the future and how ambitious we can be, and the types of projects that we can go after and the types of capital that we can invest, and then of course. The other thing is that Savvy has openly said, right, that they want to deploy a significant amount of money into the gaming space, and we are now at a scale and with access to capital that we can be in the M&A kind of side of things. We can pretty much go after any company that we think kind of could make sense, and I think for us M&A has always been about not just financials. It's really about being about kind of company growth and building, bringing teams that can teach us things and help us kind of, get better as a company. And so, obviously, over the last 12 months, we've been, first of all, making sure that the acquisition was going really well. Then we've been busy with this. I don't know if you heard about this game Monopoly. So we've always been busy. We've been somewhat busy with this game over the next 12 months. But certainly right now we are starting to become pretty focused on how do we deploy that capital and what are the kinds of teams and products that we think can accelerate our mission and our journey. And we have. Effectively, what is unlimited capital to go after that strategy. So I think it's, for me, the fundamental thing is that I think it has allowed us and the team to be more ambitious and to think bigger, because we have a platform that is incredibly solid, very protected, and very, very long term.
That really makes sense, because kind of like thinking about other potential acquirers that you would have, Scopely would have either become like a mobile arm of a large mobile or large game development powerhouse, or it could have become, enabler of somebody else. But now you're being enabled by having essentially switched the many investors that you had,
Yeah.
multiple funding rounds, to just only one who has a lot of capital and who is, very patient in terms of their investment.
Yeah, and
so
also
it puts you in the driver's seat.
Yeah, and also very strategic in how they see the kind of gaming space. They want to make a strategic contribution to the space. But yes, the way that you're framing, I think it's accurate. Acquisitions generally can be dilutive to organizations. In this case, it really has been an enabler of what we're trying to do, and I think it's really going to accelerate our path moving forward over the next few years.
Yeah, it's not like they're going to teach you something or make you work in their own way. It's like Savvy is almost like a holding company, per se.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is there a risk with increased capital? Like, I'm just thinking about this way. So you have big ambitions, and you have a gigantic game. You're generating multiple billions dollars a year, so you have to make bigger games.
Yeah.
Now you have no abundance of capital. You can go for big screen games, AAA, easily. Can you end up in a situation where you bite more than you can chew?
Yeah. I think yes, but
too many projects.
But I think here's what I would say. Yeah, risk is always there. It just manifests itself in different kind of ways. Back in the days, it was like, oh, are you guys going to be able to kind of be profitable? Are you guys going to be able to make a game? Are you guys going to be able to kind of go to Barcelona, and is anybody going to speak to you? Like it's risk is there is there's no value creation without risk. It's not going to happen because if there's no risk, it's because all the value has already been created, right? And so it's inherent. I think what we need to be aware is of the risks. Like what you need to be self-aware of, what are the risks that you're facing at any one particular point in the journey. And yes, you're right that right now, for us, in order to kind of move the company forward, we are going to have to do some risky things in terms of kind of capital deployment, both in terms of the products that we're building, perhaps in terms of the investments and M&A kind of strategy that we pursue. And so, yeah, that's risky. And in terms of kind of, biting more than you can chew, I go back to kind of what I said before. We like that. I think the important thing is to be aware of that. I think this is really important, right? I think organizations that don't kind of bite more than they can chew, they're not relevant. Like they become kind of irrelevant organizations either today or over time. I think the successful organizations are the ones that try to go after that, but at the same time are self-aware. These are the things that we don't know in order to kind of go after this market and to achieve these kind of goals. How do we learn those things? Who can teach us? What are the capabilities? What is the evolution that we need to have in our organization to go after that? And I think we are having those conversations all the time, and trying to make sure that that risk gets navigated. So yeah, it's I think risk has always been part of the journey, and I think this is really exciting risks, and the products that we're working on kind of on a go-forward basis are incredibly exciting. In some cases, they're very expensive. And not only are they very expensive, some of them are going to fail. And we're just going to have to kind of move on, And I think the important thing is that we know that, and at the same time, believe me, that we work very, very hard to kind of make sure that doesn't happen, But I think we have a really kind of strong and solid strategy, and now it's a question of growing to that strategy. Like strategy always needs to be ahead of your capabilities. Of course. If your strategy is not ahead of your capabilities, then you probably do something wrong.
Talking about M&A and growing, so Scopely has done a lot of M&A in the past, but you've never been the sort of a big spender in the M&A market. And you also haven't had the typical fails of an M&A, because normally when you're acquiring a company, no matter what the industry, the fail rate is between 70 to 90%, just because the integration is so difficult to be a part of the organization, and then the value is not created was what intended.
Yeah.
So talking about your growth, are you changing the way you're viewing M&A? Because if I understand correctly before, the way you started game projects is like you had, the product strategy that usually is an IP, then you have an internal team that is stacked with talent density.
Yeah.
And then you quite often had an external team that had expertise in the certain genre that team was executing against. And then when the team reached the position where that game was launched globally, you made the acquisition of the external team so that your goals were aligned.
Correct.
And they would continue to execute against live operations instead of, sandbagging or whatever may happen when the actual growth is needed. So has that changed or?
I think we have, that's one of the ways that we kind of, make games. In the case, for example, of Monopoly, it was 100% kind of developed by kind of internal teams. But yes, we continue to kind of partner with teams that, again, know things that we don't know. And so when or can kind of meaningfully make that game team or that game franchise, better. And so that's for sure part of the things that we continue to do. And a number of our games in development are collection of a lot of Scopely kind of people partnering with people that are not employed at Scopely. And to me, the key thing is that they need to kind of come together as a team, have a shared kind of goals and purposes and shared incentives. And that's why we structure the deals the way that we structure them, so that winning means the same for both parties. This is very important.
Attention app and game developers, are you ready to unlock the secrets behind the world's top performing apps and games? With Sensor Tower, you get the ultimate competitive edge, whether it's breaking into new markets, fine-tuning your UA strategies, or boosting monetization. Dive into data like never before, track global trends across app stores, analyze market-leading in-app purchase and in-app ad strategies, and benchmark your performance with real-time insight. The best part, Sensor Tower doesn't just deliver data, it helps you turn it into action. With intuitive tools and expert analysis, it's everything you need to make smarter, faster decisions. Thousands of app and game studios, from indie creators to global giants, trust Sensor Tower to help them win. So why not you? Start your free trial today at sensortower.com. That is sensortower.com.
And I'm just mentioning that because you've been very successful with your M&A where it's been accredited, but it hasn't been as big, you haven't been on a spending spree as some of the developers, but you've been on a tear in that sense.
Yeah, no, I think we've always been, to your point, very deliberate. And I think, of course, integration is never easy, but I think a lot of the M&A deals fail not because of integration, but because of diligence, and maybe diligence and deal structure. I mean, I've seen some deals in the mobile gaming space, large ones. It's like, how did this happen? How did this happen? Because as an outsider from 1,000 miles, you could see it. And so it's also, I think, our orientation on M&A is always no. We're doing M&A every day. This is the important thing. M&A is not just we're going to do a deal. No, we have a team and an operating system that is doing M&A every single day. And sometimes we joke, man, it's like, fuck, we go into this kind of M&A meetings. It's like, how is it that after 10 years, we're still doing so much M&A? We're still doing so many deals. When is this going to get, less? And it's always incredibly active. It's part of our operating system.
Yeah.
And so we have conviction around that and we believe in that strategy. But having said that, the orientation is always no.
No.
Because what we need to do is be convinced to, being a yes. And I think a lot of the times when M&A kind of goes wrong is because you're desperate about the yes. And you start ignoring all the warning signals about a no, a no, a no, a no. And I think we've been, that's how we operate. And I think it's helped us, significantly on a couple of crossroads where we could have made some pretty costly and, meaningfully kind of bad decisions.
Yeah, they are costly when they go sideways.
Exactly, yeah.
Talking about today, like a couple more questions. Like you've been very vocal about why the game industry, especially now, needs to be more optimistic during the difficult times. Even before we started recording, you're really positive about things. What's your advice for the folks who are in the industry who are being laid off? Like there's tens of thousands of them already. And for them, it seems like the worst time ever, which is understandable from their own, personal perspective. It's layoff news every week. What's your advice for people who are, in a very unfavorable and unlucky position?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's a difficult time, for a lot of kind of people. In terms of, kind of layoffs and where they are on, their kind of professional journey. I think my kind of advice or, what I would say about this is, the games industry continues to be a thriving ecosystem. It's one of the kind of largest entertainment kind of categories in the world. I think both in terms of revenue and audience. I think in revenue it's the number one. In audience, I think it's number two, only kind of slightly behind kind of social media. But way bigger than music, movies, TV, all of those lines, right? And as we were speaking before, it's global. Right, it's like one of those kind of few experiences that can really kind of unite kind of global audiences, and so I think it's a really kind of exciting kind of business. And the other thing is that it's an industry that, of course, a very creative industry, but it is also a very technology-driven industry, and I think it's an industry that has proven that it leans into kind of technology, kind of disruption and advances faster than anybody. And so, I think you're going to see a lot of kind of new exciting things, happening in the space over the next kind of, number of years. So I would say that it's a kind of space, really, continue to work, kind of continue to invest in. At the individual level, look, I also think that one of the great things about the games industry is that it's people-led, people-driven. And we've talked about this, and I think there's very few industries where talent can have such a direct impact on the outcome, not of a game, of a company.
Yeah.
One person, a team of 5, a team of 10 can basically kind of change the trajectory of a company like Scopely or, many other kind of companies in the space. And to me, you want to be working in places that are kind of, talent driven, because that means that a lot of the value comes back to the people, and so I would say to people that first, get some perspective, put some perspective. It's a difficult kind of phase, but the phase will, things will normalize, and there will be kind of growth and opportunities ahead. I would encourage everybody to kind of invest in the craft. And I know it's difficult when you're kind of laid off, because psychologically it's a very kind of difficult experience, right? And it's an experience that a lot of us have gone through. I've gone through that experience as well, and it's psychologically kind of very taxing, but invest in making yourself as good as you can in what you do, and continue to invest in your craft and in this industry, because I think if you do those two things, you can build an amazing kind of career, and you can have huge impact, and you can have a great outcome, and I think the future is still very bright for the industry, and it's a lot of great things still to come.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, of course, going through layoffs myself as well, it's like there's or through any negative experience, there's a way to take it in. You could take it in and as be angry about it and kind of, dwell in it for a long time, or you can just be, I'm not saying that I'm any kind of stoic, but definitely the way they approach this is just understanding that this is part of your journey and there's an opportunity here as well. Now you can do certain things that you weren't able to do before, and you have to embrace this opportunity rather than lay in the, in the difficulties. But yeah.
You can't stay. I mean, anger is a very kind of normal kind of response, but you can't stay there. And look, I think the other thing is, I would just say, and it takes time to figure out whether the best things that happen to you are actually the worst, or the worst things that happen to you are the best. It just takes time. And so keep on investing in your journey, keep on investing in your craft, and,
Yeah, exactly.
good things will happen.
Yes. Yeah, that's well put. So kind of ending in this on a something more positive. What else are you excited about? Of course, Scopely's growth. And apart from Scopely in the games industry, like what else is exciting when looking in the future?
I think I'm really excited just about how community driven, this industry has kind of, become, for me, we're talking about kind of monopoly, but if I had to think more in terms of industry verticals or types, parts of the industry, and, everything that's going on in Steam and how
One
games
person makes a game and it's huge.
Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that's a beautiful thing because it is a community of players that have, passion for an experience, really elevating a game and the group of people behind that game to heights that I don't think, by the way, cannot be manufactured. They cannot be manufactured. It is something that only the community can do. So I think that's a really kind of exciting kind of dynamic. And again, going back to the state of gaming, I think something that we should be, very proud of. I think there's very few media categories where that happens, if any. Perhaps, I don't even think music has that same level of kind of community kind of driven experience. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think also related to that, user-generated content, I think it's exciting. There's just so much technology and tools that are happening in that space that are going to empower people to make great games. I always say companies do not make games. People make games, teams make games. And I think it's going to be very exciting when people and teams can be built truly outside of companies in a very kind of flexible way. So I think that's kind of, really exciting. I'm always excited about Nintendo because I think it's like this kind of, this really inspirational kind of company that shows us what kind of long-term thinking and investment in principles and values and creativity can kind of deliver over the long term. So it's a company that I look at and kind of track closely.
Portfolio company for Savvy.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. And investment for Savvy, yeah. And I am starting, as I said before, excited about continue to evolve these games as a service. And we say games as a service, games as a service to players, right? Because in the free-to-play games as a service kind of model, you can only build a business and you can only make revenue if you're making your players happier every day. And I want to say the word happier, because if you just make them as happy as the prior day, that business will eventually kind of disappear. And as I said, I think there's still a lot of things that we have to kind of learn and discover around how to listen to those players, how to turn those kind of insights into experiences. How do we bring kind of platforms together? How do we make sure that players can kind of move between kind of platforms in a seamless manner? So I'm excited about that journey. And of course, Scopely is kind of pretty focused on that journey. And then maybe the final thing that I think for anybody that has, I think, an affinity for games, it's really exciting is, virtual reality. I think the technology is still not there. But the idea that you could be playing without knowing that you're playing, or with that delta, right? Or with that awareness to a minimum. I think for anybody that loves play, that's a kind of really exciting technology, and I certainly hope to not just see it, to be able to be part of it. I don't think it's going to happen in the next 3-4 years, but I think the promise of that kind of illusion of play is incredibly exciting.
Immersion. Well, VR definitely was surprising on that list.
Yeah.
Javier, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mishka. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
We talked last time 4 years ago. Let's talk again 4 years ago. I can't even imagine how big the company is then with the rate of speed. So hope everybody enjoyed the podcast. I think there's a lot of learnings. So thank you for being candid.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you.